Welcome everyone to our special spirit series with a very special guest today, Jamie London Wollberg, who is joining us from Los Angeles. I'm saying hello from London as usual, so we are truly cross-Atlantic today, and I'm so pleased because Jamie, who is a healer, an activist, a entrepreneur, is coming to share his wisdom, his experience, and lessons of self-love. And I know from talking to Jamie that he truly believes, and I happen to agree with him, that self-love, universal self-love, is a solution to healing the world. We start from each other's, oneself, and we spread that to that healing power to the rest of the people. So I would like Jamie for you to tell us a bit about your story, because it is an extraordinary story. So please tell us about your journey and how you transitioned from being a lady, a young girl, young woman, to being a young man now. So if you don't mind, please let us know. Tell us about yourself.
Thank you for having me, Monica. I love being able to share my story because people sharing their stories is exactly what helped to save my life. So this is the ethos of why I am here right now. So yeah, I'm Jamie, and my pronouns are he, him, his. I'm a queer and differently able transgender man, and this means that I was assigned female at birth, and I was raised into womanhood until I was 26 when I started to actually medically transition. And now I live my life in my authentic self as a queer man. I'm a person with disabilities of a long list, and that has taken me, all the combination of those things, through a really powerful journey, which has not always been remotely easy, and also in many ways very healing and fulfilling. And I take all of my experience and I put it into my purpose and to my passion, and I live to serve and support people, so that way this can be hopefully that much easier for them.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. What were your biggest lessons of self-love? I mean, the journey sounds really potentially difficult at times. So what were the lessons you've learned, and the coping mechanisms you implemented to help yourself staying on that journey?
Yeah, so it's been a very long journey and still is continuing, right? I'm here, and I believe that I'm forever the student. I know that I'm still working on, or I'm removing the word working from my vocabulary, but I'm loving through my journey of self-love. What I realized initially, I guess the first lesson is one that sounds, I guess, the most obvious, but it hits you in a different way, which is that I didn't have any. That's
You're not the only one.
I didn't have any, and that was for most of this lifetime that I was really experiencing not loving myself. There really wasn't anything about myself that I truly loved. I would make myself incredibly small, imposter syndrome, 24/7, 365. And it wasn't until during this pandemic time where I embarked on a microdosing journey by myself with psilocybin. A very small amount was all that was necessary to activate my mind and have me realize that, wow, I have made a lot of progress with my self-love through my transition and through work, like healing myself through various illnesses and managing them better, but that I had a long way to go. And really what I realized was I was thinking about what's happening in the world and how is it that we're in a pandemic and there's still so much of this anger and this rage. And of course, you know, the Black Lives Matter movement and everything else was buzzing my ear. And I was like, so clearly there's obviously many reasons which I understood why people would be angry. But what's really at the core of that? What is it that we're not seeing? And I realized that what we're not seeing is this lack of unconditional self-love, because there's not a healthy person who's genuinely healthy and happy in body, mind, and soul, who spends their time purposely harming others. I authentically don't believe that. So that means that hurt people are hurting people. So we need to work on our self-love and become one with our body, mind, and soul, and radically accept who we are and love who we are and love into who we are, in order to really love everybody and everything. And if we can all do that individual loving, then it ripples out into the collective. It's going to change the world. And it's as simple as someone making that choice, and as complex as whatever perspective you choose to hold.
Great message, and a great simplification of that. It's not complicated. It's we just need to decide to and commit, and then everything sort of step by step becomes just a progress, a work in progress, like you're saying. And if you, as you said, started from the point of not having much or none, which, as I'm saying, you're not alone. There are many of us in that position, and I think I should count myself one of them too. Everything is possible, and but that goes with all the appreciation and my admiration for you being able to stand for yourself and become authentic, and make this huge step. I mean, have you got any support around you? Have you had parents, family, friends supporting you in your decision of for your transition from your transgender transition? Have you had people supporting you at all, advising you to just continue that authentic journey?
Yeah, I mean, I got very lucky. I had people that didn't support me initially, and then people who did, and then I had people who supported me to various degrees. I mean, if you ask certain people in my family and friends if they were supportive, a lot of them would say yes, and they didn't necessarily support me in the ways that I had been hoping. But it's pretty much everyone has come around, and what I explain to people is that it's critical for those who are trans, non-binary experience to have support, and also the support must come from within as well, because ultimately it's not about anybody else. It's one of the few experiences in the human experience that I believe is truly not about other people, because you just don't go through something like this unless it's really something that your soul is experiencing in your human vessel. So ultimately, I'm very grateful that I had the levels of support. I'm more grateful for the support that I now have and the support that I've given myself. But ultimately, it was people sharing their stories, and the luck of the draw of when I was born into this lifetime with all this technology, that I had access to hearing those stories. And that is what saved my life, ultimately. That initial catalyst of seeing, oh, I'm not alone.
So you found your tribe, so to speak, and that encouraged you on the way with your decision and with your journey. And talking of that, have you had any practices, any spiritual practices you've relied on? Have you? Can you share if you had any?
Oh yes, I mean, I'm someone who was, like we were discussing earlier, I was not always spiritual at all. I was born and raised into a very non-religious Jewish family, and ultimately just did not have that connection. I wasn't someone who really understood believing in a higher power, and it wasn't that I disrespected others who did, but being someone, especially who is within the LGBTQAI+ community, I didn't have an understanding that you could be loved within that space. And I didn't understand that there was a difference between spirituality and religion, which religion is connected to spirituality and is of spirituality, but is not all spirituality. And it wasn't until I became completely bedridden from all of my illnesses when I first became very sick, that was even right before I began transitioning. And I started to have a major shift because I was completely suicidal and I was not functional in any capacity. I was in my early 20s and there was really absolutely no reason why I should have been as sick as I was. Doctors didn't know what was wrong with me. They didn't know whether I had MS or cancer or whatever else. They couldn't figure things out for quite some time. I was getting a lot of misdiagnoses and a lot of racking up of other diagnoses. And ultimately, it came down to desperation. And I prayed, really authentically prayed for the first time. And I said, if I ever get out of this bed and I can function and live within the world, I will live my truth. I will transition. I will spend the rest of my life supporting others and helping them to, go through whatever it is that they're going through. And it wasn't that movie moment where the next moment I, jumped out of bed and everything was great. But obviously you're looking at me now. I'm across the country. I'm smiling. I'm not suicidal. I'm so grateful to be alive. And I'm here to share my story. And along the way, I have had a lot of different coping skills and I've discovered a lot of different tools, where it doesn't mean that I don't do therapy still. I love talk therapy, but in terms of spiritual practice, that's the majority of what carries me through, is what I refer to as spiritual wellness, where you bring mainstream wellness and spirituality together. So people often ask me, what is the magic? There is no magic pill. There is no one thing that I do. It takes hours every single day for me to manage my body, mind, and soul, and be able to heal. So the biggest things for me are the combination of movement and meditation, moving meditation, and plant medicines. And so ultimately I created cannabis chi. And with cannabis chi, I welcome all bodies and all abilities to heal as a community using the combined powers of Tai Chi, Qigong, and cannabis. And it was being taught by a physical therapist who is of the culture. And she said, do you want to learn this? And I said, what do I have to lose? Let's do it. I couldn't do yoga anymore. And I wasn't honest at first about using cannabis before and after our sessions, but I realized after countless trying of everything else, of medications and all these things that were just really making me worse, this was the first thing that started to immediately change my life. And over the course of weeks, I improved so much and I enjoyed it so much that she suggested I get certified to teach. And that's when I said to her, I need to tell you the full story of what's really happening here. And she supported me through it. I realized there was no one in the cannabis industry or in the wellness space overall that was really doing anything quite like this, where I offer to really anybody. I create a safe space, whether you are standing, seated, laying down, whether you are in the LGBTQI plus community or the POC community, like it doesn't matter. Whatever community you are within, you are welcome and no one gets left behind. And that is my authentic truth.
Okay, and what's the practice exactly?
It's Tai Chi, Qigong, and cannabis. So in short, it's very gentle, moving meditation, martial arts, and a combination of cannabis.
Smoked, inhaled, or?
It doesn't really. It doesn't really matter. I mean, I do
Okay.
I do consume at times through smoking. I have, within my health issues, I often attempt to mostly vaporize, or other methods. But it certainly doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what, everyone's body is different. The cannabinoids are different.
Yes.
And I started adding in psilocybin, and now I'm on a new level of healing.
Mm-hmm. Well, obviously, in some countries, this is not a legal substance, so we would have that challenge in Europe and some other places in the world. But I guess Tai Chi is good enough combined with meditation and yeah, that movement and meditation and breathing, I guess, is seems to be your answer. But yes, you are an advocate, cannabis well-being advocate. So you practice, you've learned benefits of using it yourself for your well-being. Would you mind mentioning what are the other sort of health issues you had for our viewers?
Sure, I have a lot. But basically, the majority of what's going on is I have something called persistent postural perceptual dizziness. It is a diagnosis that was taken out of other vestibular illnesses in 2017. And so it's a very new diagnosis, and that's a multi-genetic disease, which essentially means that my body is really fighting constantly for balance. So there is no cure right now. They really know very little about it. I also have fibromyalgia, which is a lot more understood, but still, no cure, and I think is not fully really understood. I have something called gastroparesis, which is a rare stomach disease. So basically, for me, my digestion is about 4 to 5 hours behind the average person. So I have to eat a very sort of particular diet and particular way in order to eat. Ultimately, I had to reteach myself how to eat food. And then I'm also a neurodiverse person. I have something called executive functioning disorder, which means that I do not naturally have control over my executive functions, which for those who don't know, that's a lot of things that we do. So things like our voice control and our processing mentally and emotionally, and things like that.
It's just different, isn't it?
All the different things. I've had Lyme's disease. I mean, I literally have about 11 different diagnoses that I work through, and ultimately many symptoms underneath that. So the symptoms are really migraines, different types of headaches, nausea, extreme exhaustion, full body pain, inflammation, mood swings, you name it. But the truth of the matter is these are words that we use to associate with experiences, and we can use our mindset and our tools to experience joy and to not suffer.
Yes, absolutely. And you are a walking proof of that. But it comes without, it goes without saying that you've had pain in your life. So I can see how cannabis is also a way of handling that pain. And plus the spiritual modalities which you've incorporated in your life. It's well, it sounds like you found your way and you're managing beautifully. And that leads me to asking you that other question, which is you are sharing your experience, you're sharing your lessons with the world. So you do it professionally. You mentioned that cannabis as something you are teaching and allowing others to experience. But there is something to do with cooking as well. I seem to learn that from your profile. Will you tell us about that part of your activities as well?
Sure. So I actually, from age basically 10 to almost 19 years old, I was very much focused, first personally and then professionally, on the culinary arts. I was very interested in becoming the next biggest chef. And my path ended up switching a lot depending on my health. And then when I became a person with physical disabilities, I stopped cooking for almost 7 years. And then midway through the pandemic, I was about to go safely stay with my parents in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And they can't cook at all. And my health was a little bit, and at a level at that point where I was really able to start cooking again. And I realized that I really needed to get myself back to cooking for the practical sense of that we were going to need to all be eating, and everything was closed down because of the pandemic. So I started cooking again, and I realized how much I missed it. And I realized that this was a vehicle for spiritual wellness that overlapped and aligned within the cannabis space. And when I was in college, I had a cooking show called Baked with Jamie Wollberg that was essentially an innuendo of sorts, really discussing about, making munchies, different easy foods to make when you're in college. But I was living in New York at the time. Nothing was legal, over there. And I was more or less told that if I even mentioned the word cannabis, that I was going to be in very big trouble. And so after I graduated, it actually ended up being a big problem. I couldn't get jobs, so I had to have them take everything down. Fast forward, one day when I was in Santa Fe cooking, I decided to turn on the camera. I don't know, I was feeling lonely, I guess, for a little while. And I turn on the camera and I just start cooking live, and I'm chatting. And I thought, well, no one's really gonna watch or care about this. I'm just doing this for, my own entertainment. I was incorrect. And I realized, wait a minute, this is a huge piece of what I can do within my activism and also help with my own spiritual wellness. And so I created the Cannabis Kitchen. I revamped my cooking show. It's every Thursday now, Pacific time from 7 to approximately 9 p.m. I invite on guests predominantly within the world of cannabis, but it doesn't necessarily have to, where we talk about all things about cannabis and anything else that is about that person. It's kind of like what you're offering me now. It's the ability for them to share their story. Some of them choose to cook with me. Some of them don't know how to cook, and I'm teaching them. Some of them are already fantastic, respected chefs. But the goal is to use the vehicle of food and spiritual wellness to break the stigma of adult cannabis use, especially for healing. And so that's what I've been doing. We're, I think, 24 episodes in. This week is my 25th episode.
Absolutely amazing. I love that. I love the live aspect of bringing people together, cooking. Obviously, that bonds people so well. And your it has to be emphasized. You're advocating for cannabis well-being as a healing substance rather than anything else, and that's super important. I know I've heard of benefits, and I know people really, as get better and manage their lives so much better because of that particular substance. So that's amazing. I'm so impressed with so many things you are doing, and while you are still going through your challenges, it's a daily battle by kind of what I'm getting from what you've told me, and you still maintain that joy and beautiful energy to go out and share. We have some comments. Let me just see whom we've got here. We've got Patrick telling us good evening. Good morning for you.
Morning and evening.
So yes, and we've got Facebook user. Unfortunately, people who don't register with StreamYard before the show, I can't see the name, so I can only see Facebook user. So I can only pass the greetings. And thank you very much for watching us live. It will be available on a replay as well. So I'm sure we'll have many more people joining to see it. And also, I would invite you, Jamie, to share a link where people can contact you, connect with you, see the show. That would be wonderful. We could have it in the comments, and I would encourage people to check you. I know you are also active on Clubhouse. I think that's how we met. So you are engaging in all sorts of discussions on Clubhouse, which is such a great platform for connections. I've had a little break, but I'm definitely going back to Clubhouse for more. So thank you so much. If you would like to have any sort of last closing comment, please do. But on my end, I'm so grateful you joined us, you shared your story, you are so authentic, honest, and generally, I mean, I'm warmed up to you. I think you got that effect on people. You just warm people up and make them smile, and yeah, that lesson of self-love is so important. We should never forget about starting from ourselves before we go out and look for a love partner or important, but that self-love is even more important. So thank you so much for a reminder and being here with me.
Thank you so much for having me. And anyone can see me. My website is tranabischi.com. And on Clubhouse, you can find me at Tranabis. I do a lot of different free offerings on there. But what I will say in the last words is that remember that when you love yourself, you are really able to love everybody. And if you are someone who believes in any aspect of the collective of humanity, then you know very well that when we love ourselves, we are already loving everyone else. So there's no guilt to feel about loving self. When you love yourself, you get to be your best self for yourself and for everyone else. So if you haven't heard it today, know that I love you and that I believe in you and your ability to love yourself as well. Thank you so much, Monica. This has been such a pleasure. Namaste. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Namaste. And I'll see everyone next week with another guest. But it's been absolute pleasure to speak to you. So thank you so much. And I'll no doubt see your show and speak to you at some point on Clubhouse. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you next week, everyone. Bye-bye.